Hello, my name is Greg Lane with Strategic Leaders. I want to take a few moments today. It's probably about a 20-minute video talking about how to get your human resources personnel or your personnel department to really help sustain your process improvements. And that involves them in engagement and leadership of developing your desired traits to maintain process improvement. So let me first talk about the language I'm going to use, and then I'll speak a little about why this is so important. First of all, everything I'll refer to today will go back to your strategic targets, your strategic deployment. Some will call that their Hoshin-Conry objectives. And I believe once you have your strategy deployed, there's two levels you work on. One is what I'll call the hard issues or the hard skills. And that's where you define, say, actions, tangible actions. A lot of those might be process improvements you're making or new processes developed. And you'll also have your hard skills, your technical skills, whether it's using a Microsoft's project to plan an engineering project, whether it's a skill for setting up a particular machine, and those can be viewed on a skills matrix or cross-training matrix or succession planning. The point being, when I refer to the hard, I'm talking about those more tangible items we set up with our strategic targets. When I use the word soft, I'm talking about our soft skills. Those are our traits, behaviors, habits, our leadership abilities, and so forth. The focus of this video is to talk more about the soft skills and how our HR people that are professionals with recognizing soft skills can help develop these, because without changing the soft skills, we make a lot of process improvements that fail to be sustained. So let me give you a few numbers. If you think of your strategy in terms of you will make process improvements to implement your strategic objectives for the year, you can say that these process improvements are critical for your strategy. And the data shows through large surveys that 60% or more, and depending on what data you look at, this can range between 60 and 90%, people confirm that their process improvements are not sustained. Okay? So we go out, we do things, we put in technical solutions that many of us are comfortable with, and we have a lot of things that fall down in the next year or two because we didn't fundamentally change the beliefs, the traits, or the habits. Okay? So that's been my learning and the learning of many within the change industry, change leaders, so forth, change agents, that improvements aren't sustained because the beliefs, habits, or traits were not altered. We just put in a new process. So what we really want to be doing is not getting buy-in, because when you use that word, if you think about it, buy-in is basically assuming you already have something in mind, a plan, and you're really selling it to somebody else, getting them to support your idea. I want to talk more about engagement. That's where we're leading and coaching people to be engaged in developing the ideas. And the team needs to be engaged in that if you really want to alter their beliefs, habits, and traits. So engagement versus buy-in, and maybe think and reflect on those terms, because that's quite interesting. So let's first talk about the traditional role of the human resources or the personnel department. And hopefully your organization's progressed beyond the traditional role, but let's start there quickly. In a very traditional sense, executives looked at the role of human resources, human relations, is to systematize or policing the employees. We look at it as more a personal and administrative function, and normally these groups then report up through the finance department or the administrative departments. And if we think of it in a very traditional sense, they're responsible for hiring, for paying and payroll, the administration of compensation and benefits, policy development for the employees, employee relations, meeting regulatory concerns, etc. Sometimes dealing with the union. In other areas, trying to keep a union out can be an HR function. But I want to just focus for a second on the hiring because that's quite interesting. If you look at any job description on any website, okay, any of the big ones, almost any job description, will usually have some bullet points listing what we're looking for technically, that person being able to do. We'll often quantify that with number of years of experience. And remember, our HR department is helping flush this out and develop this because they're the ones, the HR department that's responsible for the hiring process. But normally, at the bottom of that list, we have all the soft skills we want. And the HR departments during the recent years have gone very extreme in flushing out the soft skills and helping executives determine what they're looking for in the person themselves. In 2011, it reached the point that in the United States, the EEOC needed to make a ruling on whether personality assessments that were being used were basically legal. So these are assessments helping determine people's soft traits and behaviors, and there's many of them available, but so many were being used, and of course the people that didn't get the job said it was biased because of that assessment. The EEOC ruled that they could be used in the United States under certain criteria. But my point being that our HR people are very involved in the hiring process with getting in the right soft skills and determining. But what are they doing and what's their role and responsibility with our existing workforce and developing some of those other soft skills, okay, those leadership traits, because they're our resource experts. So we'll talk through how they can become more involved. Let's just spend a moment, though, talking about the transformed role, how we should be seeing our HR people, our personnel department. We should see them as a strategic partner. And this is a quick bullet list of some things we should really see them doing. They should be helping us in reaching our strategic objectives. So they need to be involved in the process while the objectives are being developed, the annual process, and then looking out the 3 to 5 years. So they should be a business partner in that and understand the strategy. They should be helping mentor change. Coaching and mentoring is something they understand better with those soft skills than maybe some of our more technical people and technical managers. Okay? They should be providing expertise and creating that work environment where people are engaged, contributing, and happy. So we should always be aiming towards that. They should really be helping establish what do we want for an organizational culture and the competency and the link of that to the customer. Why is that important? What culture do we want to best serve our customer? They should also be looking at things like succession planning, employee development opportunities, okay? That should be part of their role. Again, linking any changes to the strategic objectives. They should kind of be a change champion, especially for the more soft skills. The more technical skills, the more technical actions will come out of the other departments. Talent management for both the soft and the hard skills. And really, our HR department should be learning about finance and accounting so they think more like business people and they can then formulate their department to serve the business needs better. Okay? Today, we'll focus kind of in this boxed in region, and we'll just talk about one method of how HR can really help develop, identify those soft skills and encourage people to alter their soft skills to sustain process improvement. So how do we get there? One assumption I'm making, I will cover quickly in this video, is that you have a clear strategy deployment. So in this little post-it pad chart, which is one of the ways I work through, say, the annual strategy at a plant level with companies, let's imagine we have objectives across the top columns, the safety, quality, delivery, productivity, and cost. And again, we should have no more than 5 or 6 objectives maximum, not 30 ideas bundled in here. But let's say our strategy deployment, we have one objective under each, in this case productivity split into 2. So we have a high level objective for the site, and then we have some metrics and targets, how we're going to measure that, how we're going to know if we got there. And then if we go down on the rows, we should have each department. So this chart, this company started with purchasing, but then very importantly, they have a role for HR, for the human resources. And this is saying for each objective, how can that department help contribute? And usually some of these are split into what they might do at the top half of the post-it, and underneath the line, how they're going to monitor it, for example. So some of the post-its are split. But the important point in this chart is HR should be involved in the annual strategy, and they should have a role of what they're going to work on. And you know, a few examples with the company, the organization that did this one. How can HR help with productivity? So when you look across the row of HR and down the column for the productivity, they should be dealing with they should be reducing casual absenteeism, helping get people to work. Maybe there's a target of 3.5%. When I worked with Toyota in the US, the HR department was very involved in reducing absenteeism, to the point that once somebody was sick the second day in a row, the HR department drove out to visit that person to try to understand what could be done. How sick were they? So there's different ways to be really proactive in this, and the first thing is HR needs a role in this matrix. Now let's explore one detailed way at the value stream team, or more in the value stream, that HR can be involved. Okay, so the first bullet point there, assume that the HR is possibly involved in identifying the hard actions a value stream team can take to reach the strategic targets for the year. So remember, strategic deployment is the key. What's deployment mean? We have some high-level objectives for a site or a plant. We have higher level objectives, of course, for a corporation, but let's talk site or plant level. And those get broken down, and normally we identify actions we're going to take. HR could and probably should be involved in identifying the hard actions, because that will give them a good lead in to the second bullet point of helping identify the desired soft skills that are necessary to support those actions that different people are going to take to reach the strategic objectives. So if you're following me, there's kind of two parts as you deploy your strategy down in the organization. You're generally first going to say, hey, what can we do? So what can we do at a value stream level, for example, to help meet these strategic objectives? If it's on-time delivery, you might be taking certain actions in the purchasing department to monitor suppliers better, a supplier rating program, getting rid of poor suppliers, whatever it might be, you'll have those hard actions. HR could and should probably be involved in those, but then the second point, they really need to lead the discussion on what are the desired soft skills, those behaviors and traits that will help make sure we maintain that hard action, that process improvement. Afterwards, they can take the next step of helping team members come to terms with what existing traits and behaviors they have. We all believe we're open-minded, or we want to believe. We all want to believe certain of our traits exist, but we're very poor at actually determining and rating our own traits. So we have to realize that, and there's certain methodologies and techniques that can help us come to terms in a non-biased fashion with where we stand with certain traits and behaviors. And I think HR should be leading that. And then, once we realize the difference between a desired soft trait, like we need to have more empathy and listen better to people's issues, if empathy is a desired soft skill, and we have a non-biased way to assess our empathy level and find a difference, then the last point, we need to look at ways to how could we alter it? How could we become more empathetic and a better listener if we're a leader in a value stream? And altering those soft skills is another area that the HR can help in. So this next matrix is where I really believe HR can ultimately take the leadership in this role. And what we're doing here is down along the, in this case, down along the column, this value stream team has written, they haven't written the specific target, but they've written their 4 or 5, in this case, 5 strategic objectives that have been handed down to them, deployed down to them. They have to meet a certain on-time delivery for their value stream. They have a certain lead time reduction, whether that's number of days or number of hours. They have a certain target for profitability, an inventory reduction target that will usually be an inventory in number of days, number of turns, maybe in dollars. And then they have a receivables resolution issue. So each of these will have a hard target. And then what they're doing across the top in the columns is they're taking the different functions, the value stream manager, the person or persons responsible for doing the quotations, for example. And what they're trying to flush out in these boxes here is what soft skills. This is not the hard actions. This is what soft skills, what traits and abilities will the value stream manager need to help reach the on-time delivery. And in this case, the HR people were involved, and they offered some examples of different traits, and then the team did some brainstorming, and they came up, for example, in this first quadrant, to help maintain on-time delivery. The value stream manager needs to have certain abilities and empathy, needs to be a good coach, needs to be very proactive in seeing the problems because you have to anticipate them coming if you want to avoid a late delivery. And also probably higher level thinking because in this organization maybe they're sharing resources, sharing machines, sharing some people resources. So the value stream manager has to obviously share and work with other value streams where we have shared processes or resources. So he or she will need maybe higher level thinking. Here the quoting person might need some real conscientiousness or the open-minded ability. Because remember, the quotation process has a lot of influence on on-time delivery because in the quoting process you determine lead times and you have to be ready maybe for certain criticisms if you determined it wrong. So open-mindedness is maybe an idea. And then what this team did is for each position, they determined the top 3 soft skills. They thought it was unreasonable to pursue all of the different skills they brainstormed out, but they looked for repeatable ones in the various rows to help reach these objectives. And they detailed out a top 3. And then you can imagine this matrix would get expanded for the whole value stream team, for the engineering, the purchasing person or persons, the project manager, maybe your operations, your quality people. Whoops. So in this matrix is what I would call your desired soft skills. You're identifying them. And I really believe this is where HR can lead these things. And then there's this team's added a certain one. They've boxed around in a darker area where that person has more control. So in this case, they're saying the value stream manager has more control over profitability versus having just influence over profitability. Here, the quoting person just has some influence over profitability. The value stream manager has more control, so wherever you have a dark box, those will be some key soft skills, okay? So now you really have what you want. You really have your future state, so to speak, and now you probably need HR's help and the personnel people to say, okay, what's the current state? Because I believe I'm open-minded already. The question is, how open-minded am I compared to others? And there are some techniques to go about that. So if we've already determined the desired soft skills, what can be the next steps? Helping team members evaluate their current soft skills. So again, this is just another matrix one way to start to visualize this. So let's say step 1, we defined some traits and behaviors we wanted. Okay, so this is a bullet list of some points we want. Across the top columns in step 2, we're identifying either techniques or methods where one can determine whether or not they have those soft skills. Some of these might be types of personality assessments, different techniques. There's many techniques out there for you to come to terms in a non-biased way, whether you have that skill. And then we have to remember that this matrix is helping us remember that it's not just going to be at the value stream team level, down here at the bottom, the value stream leader, his planner, his or her engineering people, quality people, but it's also the president, the vice presidents, and so forth, the salespeople. What can they be doing in these different areas? What should they be doing? Where is there a difference between the desire and and where we want to be, the desired and the actual? So our future state versus our current state in the soft skills. And in some of these cases here in the middle of the matrix, we're starting to identify actions, some different evaluations, some self-assessments people could take under the different categories, okay? How here's the VP of Finance, maybe would it be good to take some conflict training, okay? So different trainings people could take. So kind of in the middle are hard actions, all right? But again, these are things HR can offer. So offering techniques or actions, this middle part of this matrix. Again, it doesn't have to be a matrix, but this is just one way to visualize it, okay? I just wanted to quickly share additionally what some other organizations are doing that I've been working with. One organization I'm working with is linking their soft skill requirements. So they're trying, the personnel department is going through their company values. This company happens to have 8 company values defined, and they're trying to say what soft skills do you need for each company value. I think the approach has some validity. I find it a little difficult because some of the company values are a little wordy, and it's hard to define the exact desired traits you need, but they're having some success with that and using that as their future state, and then they're going back to try to assess their current state at each level. There's also the second point here, what another company is doing is using an A3 format. That's an 11 by 17 piece of paper, and it's really like a format of technical storytelling. And I won't spend the time today to discuss A3, but each person's developing an A3 regarding their plans for the soft skills. So they're kind of storytelling it out on one page, on an 11 by 17 piece of paper, which is called an A3 in Europe, for example. That size piece of paper, and they're going through telling what's the current situation, what's the problem they're trying to resolve, but specific to their soft skills. So that's letting them be engaged and take ownership. So in review of what we've discussed today, I'm just trying to provide you some ideas to think about how you involve HR. And one of the kind of assumptions at the beginning of this discussion was that HR has already been involved in the strategic objectives, okay? HR basically almost has their own role in the matrix, and they're already understanding the strategic plan for the year and being involved, okay? If not, that's maybe something you need to consider going back and doing. And then the big point we discussed in detail was the human relations people wanting to be involved down to like a value stream level in determining the desired soft skills and helping the team develop and improve on their soft skills. And I put below here this doing, managing, leading in that order, because I think how do you get your personnel department to do this and all? I think in the beginning it's experimentation, and it's going out doing and learning and refining. So it's always better to go do something, try it as an experiment or a pilot or whatever words you want to use. As you learn a little, you can get into that managing that process, and then ultimately evolving into leading a process. And leading is different than managing, but usually you have to go through those phases. And then we talked about very specifically kind of a methodology or a technique to lead this, and that was that matrix I showed you, where in the middle here we looked at the desired soft skills to reach that strategic objective for that person. So at each intersection of the matrix, we tried to brainstorm and flush out the soft skills. And then you need to define the roles and responsibilities. Is HR leading that? Are they responsible for it? You know, who's responsible for what? And quickly in conclusion, part of what I'm discussing today is detailed in a book I have out called Culturally on Plan. You can find more information for that book and links to purchase it at a discount at strategic-leaders.com. If there's any questions I can answer, you can email me at greglane@lean-enterprise.com. So I thank you for your time and hope you found the video